In 1956, the Chinese People's Liberation Army bombed a monastery. Not shelled it, not burned it, bombed it. Soviet-built Tupolev aircraft, a gift from Stalin to Mao, dropped their payload onto a 400-year-old monastery in eastern Tibet. Monks inside, pilgrims inside. A community that had existed since the third Dalai Lama, gone in minutes. What happened next is one of the most extraordinary, most suppressed, and most complicated stories in all of Himalayan history. Warriors born in the world's highest mountains took on the world's largest army, and for a while, they were winning. Forget everything you think you know about Tibetans. The image the world holds, peaceful monks, saffron robes, the gentle Dalai Lama, that image comes from central Tibet, from Lhasa, from the Gelugpa establishment. In the east, in a region called Kham, a different Tibet existed. For centuries, tribal rivalries, horseback raids, and the defense of mountain valleys gave the people of Kham a reputation for toughness and bravery that still defines their cultural pride today. They were called the Khampas, a caste of mounted soldiers with a heritage of independence. It was part of their heritage that they went about armed. They were once described as tall, well-built, fearless men that resembled Apache Indians. They had plaited hair hanging from each side of their well-modeled heads. Khampa men carried waist knives and body boxes, and they tied the hero spike with black or red silk threads into their hair. These weren't ceremonial warriors. These were men who had spent generations raiding, trading, surviving, and fighting. Kham is referred to in Tibetan history as Chushi Gangdruk, the land of 6 mountains and 4 rivers, a rugged mountainous area of river valleys and high peaks. The land reflects the nature of the Khampas themselves, looks pleasant when silent, can cause massive damage if disturbed. And there's something else most people don't know. The Khampas and the Lhasa government had a troubled relationship. For decades, the central Tibetan administration had sent punitive expeditions into Kham to collect taxes, suppress local power, enforce allegiance. This dynamic fostered deep resentment. In fact, and this part almost nobody talks about, prior to the Chinese invasion, relations between Lhasa and the Khampa chieftains had so deteriorated that the Khampa had actually assisted the Chinese communists in their initial invasion, before becoming the guerrilla resistance they are now known for. Let that sit. The future freedom fighters of Tibet helped the Chinese get in. That's the world these people lived in. Not black and white, not heroes and villains. Complicated, layered, utterly human. By 1950, the People's Liberation Army had taken Tibet. The Dalai Lama's government in Lhasa signed what became known as the 17-Point Agreement, a document most Tibetans viewed as surrender dressed up as cooperation. But in the east, in Kham, there was no agreement. There was only occupation. At first, the Chinese moved carefully. They built roads, they offered smiles, they called it liberation. Then came the reforms. Communist authorities began to implement what they called democratic reform, a program to eliminate monastic and tribal leadership and eradicate the traditional social system. The program involved public humiliation, beating, torture, forced confessions, imprisonment, and often executions. Suicides were widespread in areas where the reforms were announced. Monks were forced from their cells to build roads. Tribal leaders were paraded in public and made to confess crimes they hadn't committed. Some monks were dragged from their cells and challenged to prove publicly that they possessed supernatural powers. The entire social fabric of Kham, built over centuries around Buddhism, clan loyalty, and the land, was being torn apart by ideology. For the Khampas, a people who had never fully submitted to anyone, this was not reform. This was war. March 1956, Lithang Monastery, founded by the third Dalai Lama, one of the most sacred sites in all of Kham. Inside, hundreds of monks and Khampa fighters who had taken refuge there rather than submit to disarmament. The PLA surrounded them. There were infantry assaults, there was artillery. When those didn't finish it, on the 29th of March, the Air Force dispatched 2 Tupolev Tu-4 aircraft to strafe and bomb the monastery. The next day, the PLA made their final assault. Lithang was followed by assaults on Chatrang Monastery and Batang. In Nyarong, rebel leader Dorje Udon mobilized approximately 4,000 fighters. In Ngaba, forces grew from 3,000 to 12,000 between March and May alone. You bomb one monastery. You create 10,000 warriors. By mid-1956, Khampa forces had temporarily overrun strategic sites like Chamdo, Lithang, Batang, and Kantsu, effectively controlling large swaths of eastern Tibet. 6,000 Tibet irregulars ranged freely from their mountain hideouts. PLA soldiers who rode more than a day from base were usually ambushed. The world's largest army, pinned down in mountain valleys by horse-riding traders and herdsmen. In Lhasa, watching all of this, was a man named Andruk Gompo Tashi, 51 years old, a merchant, not a monk, not a general, a trader, which meant he could travel, organize, and move through different worlds without raising immediate suspicion. He knew something the fighters in the mountains didn't. To effectively fight the Chinese Communist Party, they would need foreign support. And to organize a guerrilla army in an occupied city, he would need cover. His solution was brilliant. A plan was created to present the Dalai Lama with a bejeweled golden throne. Gathering materials for the gift required networking among potential donors all over Tibet. The kind of people who could donate gold or jewels for the throne were also likely to have plenty of arms and money to contribute to the resistance. The magnificent throne was presented in a ceremony on July 4th, 1957. Every meeting to collect donations for the throne was actually a meeting to plan the war. Now, here's where this story turns in a direction that connects directly to our earlier video on Dorje Shugden. Andruk Gompo Tashi consulted the most sought-after oracle of the time, the Panglung Oracle, who could take trance of the enlightened Dharma protector, Dorje Shugden. In 1956, the oracle took trance of Dorje Shugden and told Gompo Tashi and a few others to band together and form a society of warriors at a lake in the shape of Vajrayogini's ritual chopper. The lake was later identified as Pangong Tso. When the Khampa warriors were slow to organize, Dorje Shugden manifested anger through the Panglung oracle and scolded them. The protector fiercely told them to unite and warned them if they did not form into a group, they were not to consult him again. The militia named itself Chushi Gangdruk, meaning the land of 4 rivers and 6 ranges. They formed their iconic emblem from a pair of crossed swords, a ceremonial sword of the Dharma protector, Dorje Shugden, given to Andruk Gompo Tashi by the Panglung oracle, and a second sword auspiciously found at the site of their camp at Pangong Tso. A guerrilla army, born at a sacred lake, named after the mountains and rivers of their homeland, summoned, according to its founders, by a deity, speaking through an oracle in trance. Officially established on June 16, 1958, in the Loka region of Tibet, Chushi Gangdruk marked the consolidation of what had been scattered resistance into a unified fighting force. They began with arms captured from Chinese soldiers and a limited supply of weapons covertly provided by supporters abroad. Supporters abroad. That phrase is doing a lot of work, because the Khampas were not alone. They had help from somewhere that, at the time, was the most secretive intelligence organization on Earth. The CIA had been watching Tibet since 1950. They had a plan. A covert operation with a name so absurd it almost sounds like fiction. St. Circus. A handful of Khampa warriors were about to be taken to a remote American training base, given radios, given weapons, given orders to go back into Tibet and fight a Cold War proxy battle on the roof of the world. Some of them would become legends. Some would never come back. And eventually, the United States would do something to the Khampa people that no Chinese bomb had managed to do. It would break them,